Public comment. The public may address the board concerning items that are scheduled for discussion during the special board meeting only. These presentations are limited to 3 minutes each, or a total of 30 minutes for all speakers, or the 3-minute limit may be shortened. Speakers are not allowed to yield their time. Do we have any cards? No cards. 3.1, consideration of resolution number 18/19-13, resolution of the Board of Directors of Mount Diablo Unified School District Education Facilities Financing Corporation authorizing and directing the execution of documents and certain related actions with respect to a lease financing for the Mount Diablo Unified School District. Dr. Meyer.
Yes, if I don't know if there are comments, but we have Courtney Jones here who can give a brief statement.
Thank you so much. Good evening. My name is Courtney Jones. I'm a partner at the law firm of Jones Hall, and we have been serving the district as its bond counsel in connection with its certificate of participation financing. That item was approved by the district board in June of this year, and we have been proceeding along working with the financing team. And the purpose for sitting tonight at this moment is a special meeting of the Financing Corporation, which was formed in 1994 by the school district to assist in financing structures such as a certificate of participation issue. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is to bring to you the final board action required so that we can actually continue and proceed with the certificate of participation issue. So technically this is calling to order a meeting of the Financing Corporation, and by virtue of your position on the board, the governing board of the district, you also are the governing board of the corporation. So there is only one item before you tonight, and it is this resolution that confirms the corporation's participation in the financing and authorizes officials to move forward with the execution of necessary documentation.
Thank you. Any questions? Any motions?
Madam President, I move that the board approve resolution number 18/19-13, and it is a mouthful for those of you listening. I'm going to read it though. Resolution of the Board of Directors of the Mount Diablo Unified School District Education Facilities Financing Corporation authorizing and directing the execution of documents and certain related actions with respect to a lease financing for the Mount Diablo Unified School District.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Second. Second. Thank you.
We need a roll call vote.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Trustee Lawrence.
Yes.
Trustee Mayo. Yes. Trustee Hanson.
Yes.
Trustee Durkee. Yes. Trustee Mason votes yes. Votes yes. That passes 5-0-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Courtney.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Now we can go with the start menu. I'll introduce you this next round.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Having no other
Oh,
business,
that closes.
we do adjourn the financing authority.
The meeting of the special meeting and the finance. That wasn't closed. No, it wasn't like that. No, it was not. Can we go ahead and still have the court? Can we open them?
Yes.
No, you're right. All right, we're going to go ahead and reconvene into open session. I will start with a roll call. Trustee Durkee? Here. Trustee Hansen?
Here.
Trustee Mayo? Here. Trustee Lawrence? Here. Trustee Mason is here, and our guest trustee for the night is Jorge Paredes from College Park High School. And you're welcome to stay as long as you want tonight, and you're welcome to ask questions or make comments on anything that's before the board. You just don't have voting rights quite yet, all right? Thank you. All right, so having done that, I will ask all of you to rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our report out from closed session is the board will be going back into closed session after the regular meeting to discuss 7.1 and 7.2. On 7.3, the board voted on a 3-1-1 with Mason, Durkee, and Hansen voting to disenroll the student, A19, Lawrence voting no, and Mayo abstaining. 3.4 was anticipated litigation. One case was dismissed with prejudice, and the other case we just received information on. 7.5, possible discipline, dismissal, release, or reassignment of public employees. There were 4 cases that we received information on, 3 and gave direction on the other one. And that was what we did in our closed session, which takes us to public comment. The public may address the board regarding any item within the jurisdiction of the Board of Education of the Mount Diablo Unified School District that is not on this agenda. These presentations are limited to 3 minutes each, or a total of 30 minutes for all speakers, or the 3-minute limit may be shortened. If there are multiple speakers on any one subject, the public comment period may be moved to the end of the meeting. Speakers are not allowed to yield their time. The first public comment is David Giordino.
Good evening again, Dr. Meyer, board members. My name is David Giordano, and I'm speaking on behalf of my son David, who is in the 6th grade at Sequoia Middle School, as well as on behalf of his fellow classmates. I'm speaking tonight in regards to the new student in the 8th grade at Sequoia Middle School, who approximately 3 months ago threatened to commit a mass murder of 30 students at Valley View Middle School. FBI spokesman Prentice Danner said this incident could have been the next school shooting. The fact the student was part of an administrative transfer shows gross negligence on the part of the district and sets a dangerous precedent. Threaten to murder 30 students and be transferred to another comprehensive site? This decision to transfer this student to another traditional school when he would be better served in one of our alternative settings is unacceptable. In fact, it is potentially deadly. This is poor form. This lack of professionalism and transparency is offensive to our educators you say you value and the students who we are supposed to faithfully serve. Dr. Meyer, board members, when it comes to issues of safety, we must be proactive. Please do right by all our students and all our teachers and all our parents. Protect our families, protect our community. If this new student was deemed unsafe to return to Valley View Middle School because he was a threat to the student body, then by that rationale and under these circumstances, the same holds true at any other comprehensive middle school. Sequoia Middle School is an inappropriate placement. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Christina Katz.
Good evening, welcome. Thank you for having me. I'm here regarding a 7th grade student at Sequoia, my daughter. And my question that wasn't presented last time was if this student was deemed okay to be put back into mainstream school, then why was he not admitted back to Valley View? If he was no threat, why did you need to upset another 2 communities if there was nothing wrong with this young man? That makes no sense. I understand the boy has rights, but our children have rights to be safe. And we are not informed of all of what is happening in this case. And it makes me hard to look at my daughter to tell her she's safe because I don't know if she really is safe. I find it hard to believe in such a short amount of time that any person with the right therapy can be ready for mainstream. She shouldn't have to spend her lunch and recesses discussing with her friends where they would hide should something happen on campus during their lunches. That's what they're doing at lunch and breaks. When a fire drill goes off, they now have to wait 30 seconds so somebody can check the hallways to make sure there's nobody out there. Our kids shouldn't have to go through this. My daughter wanted to go to Sequoia so bad, she told me. And I fought to get her in there, and she was so happy, and she had a fantastic year. And I never thought that she would have to face this. And what type of message are we sending? If you misbehave, wow, you might get into an elite charter school that my older daughter, I tried to get her in there, she never got in. It's very muddy. And you're sending very, very mixed messages. I hope that the boy gets the help that he needs. I don't feel confident that he gets it in his home life. And so it's up to us, the community, and for the board to ensure that this boy gets the help and the safety that all of us deserve. Thank you.
Shannon Leckie.
Hi, thank you for your time and attention. I didn't prepare my remarks for today. I was hoping to find out, I don't know if you answer questions during this session, but I generally wanted to know if there was going to be any sort of response to all of the different parent remarks and concerns that came up at the meeting last month.
I'm sorry, Shannon, I usually start with the disclaimer, and we won't count this against your time, that because we operate under the Brown Act, the board has 3 options during the public comment period, which is to ask a clarifying question of you, put your item on a future agenda, or to refer you to staff to handle your situation. So those are the only things we can do. So we won't be answering questions tonight, and the fact that we're not interacting and commenting doesn't mean we don't care and we're not listening. We're just following the open meeting laws.
Okay. In that case, I might actually reiterate what I had said last month, just because they are still strong concerns for me. So my hope was to request that the district and the Sequoia schools provide transparent communication around the decision to allow the student who threatened lives at Valley View Middle School in June. The parents of Sequoia Middle School and elementary schools are still grappling with how to respond to the minimal and alarming information we have been given. Much of the information floating around now is second and third hand. We have quotes from the FBI that are coming through news channels, but little to no information that's actually coming from the district or the teachers or the principal of Sequoia Middle. Our children's physical safety is in question here, and it's not reasonable to expect that parents put all their trust in the school and the district when the communication has been so scant. We need to know the decisions and how the decisions and actions reflect that the decisions and actions of the board reflect the realities of today's climate of gun violence. And then a few specific concerns that I would hope could be addressed and that I think are critical to be answered for Sequoia parents are as follows. Has a mental health professional signed off on and taken responsibility for this student returning to a public school setting after only 2 months? How did this student undergo a major disciplinary action and then receive a coveted seat at a magnet school with a long wait list? Did this student have access to unsecured firearms in the home? Have all firearms been removed from the home of this student? Will this student's personal bags be searched when he enters Sequoia campus each day? Will there be any additional campus security personnel and/or procedures put into place to appropriately handle a student who has talked about killing other students? Who exactly in the district will be responsible and held liable if any student is harmed? Is this student receiving any mental health help either through his parents or the school, and can he possibly be assigned to a school that has the facilities or staff to give him the help that he needs? Will the student body at Sequoia be provided any training on reporting anything that they see is suspicious, as well as how the school will respond to an actual shooter event? And then personally, I believe the student should be homeschooled until transparency has been achieved from the district to the parents. Thank you very much.
President Mason, can I ask that either yourself or the superintendent or Mr. Schenke would provide an explanation beyond the Brown Act of what we can and cannot as a board discuss in terms of an individual student? Might I request that? Because I think that we have some people who are hoping for answers that won't be provided, and so I think clarification would be helpful.
I can certainly start, and then I will ask Mr. Schenke to cite the specific law, but you cannot share personal private information about a student. You cannot share academic, social emotional, attendance, any of the intervention, if any, unless granted explicit permission from the parents. Do you have anything else, Mr. Schenke?
That's a very succinct summary of what the federal and state law requires the district to do. Thank you.
Thank you. And as of now, I have one more public speaker card for Kim Childers.
I'm not speaking.
Okay, thank you. All right, that concludes our public comment. Now we are to recognitions and resolutions. 9.1, Hispanic Heritage Month. California State Board of Education recognizes it as multicultural education policy that each student needs an opportunity to understand the common humanity underlying all people, and the Mount Diablo Unified School District proclaims the month beginning September 12th, today, and ending October 12th as Hispanic Heritage Month.
Madam President, I move that the board approve Resolution 1819-10 proclaiming September 12th today through October 12th as Hispanic Heritage Month.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. And that passes 5-0. Thank you. Next, we have resolution number 18/9-12, Suicide Prevention Month for September 2018. Suicide is a serious public health problem that affects people of all ages. Each year, more than 41,000 Americans take their own lives, and more than 494,000 Americans receive medical care for self-inflicted injuries. It is the fourth leading cause of death in children ages 10 to 14. Suicide is preventable. So we would like to have this resolution for September 18th.
I was going to make a comment first, maybe I first said. I'm really, I guess I hate to say I'm happy to see this on, but I'm really glad that we're doing this. Just this past weekend, I was at an event in Antioch and kind of off by the water, and got there, was enjoying the view of the bridge, and was told that someone had 5 minutes before had jumped off that bridge, and there still wasn't a body. So it just always reminds me we are not closed society. I don't mean just the school district, but as a society, we're nowhere near doing what we need to do for people who are struggling to that length, that they would jump off the bridge. Apparently, got out of the car and just jumped. There was no hesitation, nothing. So, you know, obviously, I feel very strongly about it. I'm really happy to see that we're calling this out specifically. You know, as citizens, as human beings, it's on each of us to be alert, to reach out to people, you know, to be kind, but also to be tuned in so that we can do more to prevent this horrific decision that people make. So with that, Madam President, I move that the board adopt resolution 18/19-12 declaring September 2018 Suicide Prevention Month of Mount Airy Unified School District.
Thank you.
Second.
And that passes 5-0. Thank you. Board member reports. Trustee Durkee?
Yeah, I'm going to take a little different tactic tonight, and you know, being an elected official, sort of, and I becomes kind of another identity that you have, but it just made me think about and realize how important it is to really know people that are running for different positions. You know, I'm just speaking locally. You know, you hear enough about the national scene that we know. But so I've actually taken the time and the opportunity to reach out to folks that are running, particularly for positions that relate to education. You know, obviously not now Babel, but you know, in the Community College Board, County Office of Education Board, County Superintendent, and meet with folks to find out why they're running, what their plans are. All these educational organizations are very connected. In an ideal world, we work well together. And so, you know, I'm just saying that to encourage other people to, you know, sometimes we don't know if we can do that, and you certainly can. You know, if someone is running, they're happy to talk to people and let people know why they're running, what they believe in, what they think is important. So I have, you know, I can't talk about specific people, but I just want to share that. That's something I feel like I learned a lot from, and it's encouraged folks to do that as we're rapidly approaching the November election.
Trustee Nancy?
I went to a couple of events I think that were interesting, because one was the Contra Costa Mayors Conference. They meet every month, our mayors in all our cities in Contra Costa County, and they meet in different locations, kind of rotate through, and they always have great conversation about what is happening in our cities that are similar or different. And this time, the meeting last week, the focus was on housing, the housing crisis. And actually it was really, really startling, because it turned out that the biggest victims of inflated costs and trouble finding housing are the elderly. And the City of Walnut Creek's housing development manager presented, and it was pretty shocking, actually, the cost to live in the Bay Area, but the impact on groups you don't normally think about, which were the elderly, and how many of them end up unable to afford even a rental at this point. And so there was a lot of conversation about why that occurs and how they can mitigate it. And there wasn't one mayor there that really had a solution, but every mayor there had a problem with it. And it's interesting, because I happen to live in Clayton, and the meeting was held in Clayton this time. But what's interesting about Clayton, I think, and the way they approached it, not just because it's my town, but because I thought it was an interesting strategy, is cities are required to have a certain percentage of low-income housing, and cities are grappling with that. And the city of Clayton did it in a way that puts their low-income housing toward housing for the elderly. And so these are independent living units where the elderly can afford to live, and then Clayton in the process sort of addresses that high needs community. We often think of people, homeless people, and you don't think, gee, they could just be senior citizens who work their entire lives and end up out without family or without income to support themselves. So it was pretty heartrending, actually, as they talked about it, because nobody had a solution, everybody had concerns. So that's what the cities were grappling with this month, and again, there was no answer. And then yesterday, we have Mrs. Mayo and I sit on this, and Dr. Meyer attends, and we have a subcommittee. I would encourage every city to do this with us. But Pleasant Hill had reached out some years back. Sue Nowak and I had met to talk about, because I believe schools are really address cities too. There's a city identity along with the school identity. And I'm a big believer in neighborhood schools and city identity. So Pleasant Hill, Sue had reached out when she was mayor, and we talked about how to get together and talk about what the needs are for the city and schools in that city. So we developed an education subcommittee. We've been meeting several times a year for the last few years to talk about situations just in Pleasant Hill schools. So that's what we were doing yesterday. And the city always has a chance to share their issues. And of course, in Pleasant Hill, like most of our cities, one of the big issues is traffic. And those of you who are out driving kids to school find yourself in a parking lot. And the city of Pleasant Hill is not unlike some of our other cities where you have little 2-lane roads, and parents literally, especially at pickup time, are sitting in parking lots right on the public streets. So the nice part is the police chief sits in on these meetings, and we can brainstorm solutions and try to help each other out. And I think it's a really good partnership, and I would encourage all our cities to go that extra step with this education subcommittee, where we can really, I tell them, put your special interest forward for your city, because there is that identity. So that was the big one really from the city of Pleasant Hill. The other thing was applause for the police department. Pleasant Hill has partnered with Mount Albert Unified to provide an SRO, and we've done that with our other cities, and we love that partnership. And there's a great attitude from the Pleasant Hill Police Department around collaborating with the school district and our schools, and they're very invested in their schools. So we feel really well supported by them. And then our end was sort of our Measure J coming up, our bond that's coming forward. And so we had a chance to talk with Pleasant Hill about the process we're using to try to get input, community input on this bond, to make sure that we're meeting the needs of local cities and schools as well. So it's a nice opportunity to kind of have a great discussion. And that's it right now.
Trustee Neal? Ms. Hanson addressed many of the same items that I wanted to talk about. Also at the community meeting with the City of Pleasant Hill yesterday, we talked about the Community Service Day, which is on a Saturday, September 22nd. I'm sure some of the folks in the audience have volunteered for that. I know I have. And for those of you that don't know, folks can enroll on the website in advance of the meeting, pick out what project you might like to be involved in, whether it's a project at a school, whether it's somewhere in the community, perhaps even doing yard work for a senior citizen. And a new item this year is creek cleanup. I wanted to make sure I said that carefully. So it's an exciting day. There's a pancake breakfast served, and usually there's some sort of lunch. So it's a great community day, and it's an opportunity to meet with friends and community members. Seniors come out and help at the schools, vice versa. So it's a good day. So I'm hoping that folks will support that. I wanted to report that Measure J Committee is working hard. The group is meeting every Friday, and they're reaching out to the community to inform them about Measure J on the November 6th ballot. I encouraged everyone to study the measure, pro and con, and encourage others to be involved in the electoral process on November 6th and vote whatever you reach in regards to your conclusion. Thank you. Thank you. Trustee Lawrence?
I'll pass on my board report for this evening. Thank you.
Okay. Jorge, got a report?
Well, I'm from College Park High School, and I just wanted to report that we've had a great beginning of the year, especially with our resource officer, Officer Botello. There's no problem with him. He's a great person. He's always around. He's not sitting in his desk, so he's always around. He's active throughout the campus, and so we're just working right now on creating events on how to engage the student body, parents as well. And one way we're doing that is through social media. That's how we advertise most of our stuff. So I highly encourage that, district-wise or whatever the case may be. It works. Social media works. It gets the word out. We live in an era where just everyone's on their phones. So, if they scroll through something and they see it, then gets stuck in their mind. And for our homecoming rally, which is coming up in October, we're introducing a change to our royalty, which we're switching from king and queen to 3 royalty courts in a way, just due to like gender identity and things like that. So we're giving more options and just more winners too. So yeah, so we're changing that, and that's about it right now. We have our blood drive in November, and then we're planning more events throughout the year. So that's it.
And I like Trustee Durkee was going kind of a different direction tonight. I was in the corner store the other day, I'll admit it, buying a lotto ticket. And I heard supporting education. But I heard a voice behind me go, "Miss Deborah Mason," and I turned around, and it was a young man who I had hired to work in the after-school program years ago when I was doing the after-school program when he was a senior in high school. And he was kind of a quirky, funny little guy, and some of the teachers or principals that at the site he was at didn't think he had a future in education. But I saw a leader in him, and I worked with him, and he invited me to come to Mount Deva High School and watch him in a play, and I was amazed to see him singing in front of all these people. And he was just a really nice kid, and I had big plans for him to go off and become a teacher and come back to Mount Diablo. And then he burst that bubble when he told me upon graduation he was signing up and going to the Marines. And he was back in Bay Point. He had just finished 2 tours of duty with the Marines. He worked the embassies, has been all over the world, ended up marrying a young lady from Malaysia. But he said, "I heard you're on the school board." And I said, "I am." And he reminded me that there was a decision made about the after school program that he wasn't happy with many years ago. And I was out of town, and he said, "What can I do?" And I said, "Well, you can always go to the school board meeting and speak." So Luis put on a sports coat and a briefcase and came down here all excited to speak. And he was actually stopped at the door by an employee of the school district and told he could not. And he was told that the public comment period was over, he couldn't speak. And as it turns out, the item was on the agenda. He could have spoke. But that was one of the things and one of the reasons I feel so strongly about being on the school board, is I think everybody should be allowed to speak, whether we agree with them or don't agree with them, whether we like what they say to us or don't like what they say to us. And it's a decision that when I think you decide to run for board, you have to know people are not going to always like you, people are not going to always respect you, but as long as you really are doing what's best for our kids and trying to make the best decision that you can, that's about all we can do. And I will not always make the right decision, maybe, but I'll always make it for the right reason, because it's what I really believe is best for our schools, our staff, our children, and our community. So that's my report for tonight. And with that, we go to Superintendent Meyer.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you, Jorge, for being here tonight and all of the extra work that I know goes into leadership. It's one of those things that a lot of people benefit from and a smaller group does the work for. So thank you. To start out, I wanted to share that it's amazing how quickly the weeks are going. And here you have a picture of the Northgate cheerleaders getting ready and preparing before the game. And so it's a lot of work. Another thing that takes a lot of work behind the scenes. So I wanted to show a little glimpse into the work that they do. Wanted to also share that this week we celebrated on Tuesday the Day of Remembrance, and for the first time we no longer have within our schools any students who were alive when that happened. And so it puts it in perspective about how long ago it was, but it was something where many of us were on school campuses when it happened, and we remember what we were doing during that time. And truly, as Ms. Hansen mentioned, our partnerships with first responders and the work that they do continues on. So I wanted to just note that.
We're old, but we still have some 18-year-olds in our schools too.
Oh, we do. That's
Yeah,
right. And we
so
have some adult students as well. Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. I'm going to talk about math later. I wanted to also share that many of our they weren't in school, is what I was saying, because I was kind of gauging it by my daughter who just left College Park. I wanted to also say that at a couple of our schools, Pleasant Hill Elementary, Foothill Middle, they had special ceremonies in honor of the day. At Foothill, they had their choir sing, and they also had Boy Scouts and different tributes that happened across our schools. So great, great thing to remember. As looking at many of the things that we've done, see it's already here, I wanted to show how we're looking differently at making mathematics accessible. And so early in our elementary grades, we're trying to have students think differently, both with in a hands-on way and at looking at how to solve problems differently on whiteboards, in teams, etc. So it aligns with our district focus, which is to make sure that we prepare all of our students for post-secondary success and that we open up doors and career pathways. And math is often one of those things that gets in the way. So that's something I wanted to connect. 29,000. We have 29,000 students, so I wanted to share that it has dipped under 30,000, which is kind of where we had been hovering for a while. So it's relatively flat, but we saw a little dip. And in speaking to other districts in the county, we are seeing that they also were losing enrollment. And, you know, the housing, as mentioned earlier, is a big part of that. When we do our numbers and we look at where they are, we in our primary grades, our kindergarten through 3rd, 4th, we are seeing an increase, and especially in our kindergarten, a real large group. But in our high schools, we're seeing a smaller number. And so when I speak to other districts, like San Ramon, for example, they're having the opposite, where their primary grades, it's been very difficult for families to afford homes, and that they have some in the upper grades that it's growing. So I wanted to share that number, and then kind of to go through the budget, and we'll hear more about the budget tonight. And so wanted to note that we have 246 million in our general fund budget, and we also have 128,900,000 in our restricted. So this includes grants and different types of budgets. Some are designated for facilities, some are designated for different programs. And we currently have a 3-year positive certification. And I state that because we will have our unaudited actuals tonight. And we also are noting that several places in this area especially do not have that 3-year certification. Some biggies include Sacramento, Oakland, just on either end of us. And so they are struggling with that, but currently we are in a positive place. Mentioned a little bit about the summer projects in general terms, but I wanted to share some of the projects, and I see Mr. Richard Jackson is here. And a little more specifics, I showed pictures last time. We've had restrooms, over $5 million, and that was the last phase of Measure C. We've had a lot of hardscape, which is the concrete and different places around the campus. All of this during the summer, which is the best time to do the work. Door repair, replacements, playgrounds, which has been a wonderful addition, primarily the equipment, the slides and all of those things. Field improvements, 1.4 million, and we're still looking at field improvements, and so that's a positive that many people benefit from. And then roofing, we've had some great roofing projects that were going on and continue to go on, $14 million of roofing. And then our tennis courts, there's a picture of one of them, and we're still awaiting the gates around a couple of them, but you know, considerable investment in that, nearly $3 million. I know it's not just paint and concrete. And then in our different athletic fields, as mentioned, 1.2 million. Facilities relocations, we have some old portables that were in different schools that we had to lift up and move to different places, and much of that relocation is covered there. And then security fencing, which we're looking at continuing and increasing where needed. So a lot going on there, and we have about 16 million that is complete and another 12 or so that is in progress. Okay, so I mentioned roofing. Riverview today posted on social media their roof, and it was a long time coming, but we talk a lot about them and we never see them, so I thought you might like to see the results of that. It is a helicopter view. So Riverview Middle School is ready for the rainy season. Just another thing, and I'll go quickly through this, but you can certainly look back upon it. But we've talked a lot about our facility plan, and it really does coincide with the work that you spoke of around the bond. And so we are in the middle of a facility master plan, and so this is a plan where we're going out to every school, we're walking the schools, we are evaluating what we need and what we don't. And so one important thing with this is that it will be a guide for us with all of the funds that we have in the future, and it will really help us make decisions based on need. In May, the board had an RFP and assigned the contract, so that has already happened. Our first phase is underway now, and it involves data collection and a needs assessment, and it will be completed in the fall. And then our second phase begins in November, and we will have a series of town hall meetings, so I want to invite everyone to those and let you know that they will be looking at the priorities, they'll be working with focus groups, and they have different teams of focus groups called charrettes, and there they're talking about design, and they'll have an ongoing kind of a guiding advisory group. And then lastly, I wanted to just mention that the facilities plan will be on our website. They're going to have their own web page, so you can kind of follow along if you have an interest. Okay, as mentioned, we are looking at Proposition J, and it will be on the ballot November 2018. It would provide $150 million in upgrades, so it's quite a bit smaller than ones we've had in the past. It also would be used for safety upgrades, classroom improvements, repairs, plumbing, etc. And it has a new web page, and so I wanted to point that out. There will be a link, and it's www.yesonj. All right, now to the pictures. Someone's supposed to look surprised. We are going to have our first speaker series, and what we noticed is that we had a lot of talent in the room and talent within the district. So we are going to tap into much of that this year. Our first speaker series is on health and nutrition, and it will be October 3rd, and I think we're still hammering out the location. But we are going to discuss nutrition, the changes that we're making in nutrition. I believe Mr. Machi will even be providing kind of a tasting opportunity, and we're very excited. And also, you know, with health in the upper left-hand corner, it includes that combo of what kind of athletic not only curriculum but extracurricular activities we have, and how to have that healthy lifestyle. So that will be October 3rd. And then also I wanted to really give recognition and mention that we had our office managers training, which was this today, and went to speak to them and really thank them, because there's so many people in different roles that really hold everything together, and this is truly one of them. And talk about a very, very bright group of movers and shakers, and I plan to go back. They're just really full of great ideas. Samantha Espinosa was there, and she was sharing new information with them. And also Felicia Stuckey-Smith was there discussing the Student Services Department. So they were getting good information that they will in turn take back and use to work with their students. And you're going to see a lot, we've had a lot of training at Willow Creek, so kind of pictures of people in Willow Creek. So this is Project Lead the Way, and we've been doing this now K-12, and this is a partnership with Chevron that works on science and technology and engineering. And so Project Lead the Way here is having training, and we're using their wonderful curriculum, and that occurred this week as well. Also wanted to share that we have had our district focus on AVID, and we've had many teachers that got together to discuss AVID and see how they can help our students with advancement via inner determination. I know your ASB teacher is also an AVID teacher, and students are very excited about the possibilities, and this now also is a K-12 initiative. So very excited about opening doors and career opportunities for students. And then just a point of information, wanted to share, we now, with our tool dual immersion classes, every year we look at how they're doing, and there's a very rigorous, challenging pathway for a student to become biliterate. So we have 261 graduates last year, so a very, very wonderful number we're very proud of and celebrating. And we anticipate that to continue to go up, and it is something that takes a high level of language immersion in more than one language. So we're going to be talking a little bit more about that, but 261 is something very much to be proud of. So we're grateful to our English Learner Department, our Curriculum Department for their work on that. And then one of the things that I don't think was mentioned in the reports, but we had a presentation that I was fortunate to give in the Bay Point schools, and it was for the Municipal Advisory Committee, MAC, in which our chair here is the chair there. And so it was an opportunity with really a packed house to talk about how our Bay Point schools are doing, some of the work that they're doing around instruction, and I think it was noted for the first time every single principal from every school that feeds into Mount Diablo High from Bay Point was there. And so many of them even had open houses on the same night. They were going back and forth. So great group there, and a lot of good information about what we're doing in our Bay Point schools. And then lastly, just showing some students working together and creating, and I'd like to thank you, and that is my report.
Thank you. Is there a particular item on the agenda you want to speak to?
Yes.
Did you fill out a speaker card?
No.
Well, you don't have to legally, but are we there yet? What item is it, so we just know when to call you up?
I'm just one of the Sequoia parents, and I just don't understand the process. All I want to know is when are you going to give us an answer and a decision?
Okay.
Because I haven't been able to sleep.
Okay.
And I have a really traumatized daughter, and I just don't understand the process because I'm foreign born. I mean, all these closed sessions and nights of sleepless, I mean, can you just, I'm a human being, I would like to just know when would you make a decision, because I have a really troubled daughter, and I'm not alone. There are a lot of parents who are all confused how the process goes. So, I mean, I can go outside and somebody can explain to me, but this is really troublesome.
There you go.
We will absolutely have some people assist you.
Thank you. Alrighty. Now we're going to have a report on recommendations for 5th grade family life.
Thank you, President Mason. We'll get our presentation up here.
We do have several public comments. Would you like to hear the report first, or would you like to comment first? Report? Okay, that's how we usually roll. Okay.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you. Upon request and discussion between the Board of Education and our internal staff, we are very pleased to bring to you some information and some results from our summer work that is around our 5th grade family life recommendations. So myself and our executive director of curriculum and instruction, Jennifer Sachs, will be sharing some information on family life, and I think we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, so, good evening. Just a little bit of background. This is information that has been shared with the board and the community and the public earlier, that there was a decision made in order to transition some of our family life materials from what they were to something that was more current. And there was a question out there in the community originally about the why. Why would we make that change? And these are just some bullets that takes people back to the reason why new materials, revised materials were looked at. That the prior content did not comply with changes in the Ed Code, especially the California Healthy Youth Act, which actually came out in 2016. That some of the information was inaccurate or biased, which was very problematic for our 5th grade teachers. Increased access to information, and I appreciate the comment about, you know, social media being, you know, just super duper important, and there's some filters on that, but not a lot. We've got a lot on the TV that our students are seeing, so the increase in social media and what's on our televisions and what they're seeing from every single day just made the staff really feel as if we needed to take another look at those materials that we were providing and the content we were providing our 5th grade students. The materials were simply outdated, and it marginalized segments of our student population. It was very, very, very traditional, and we did receive some feedback from some families that they really did not feel that their family was necessarily represented in some of the materials that our teachers were having to use.
On that topic too, I want to say that the discussion that we've had as a district around the curriculum has brought many people to come, has caused many people to come to us and share that they're happy that we're having this discussion and that we're engaging around different populations, different students, and different different family makeups.
So this was also information that was shared previously about the timeline and what was happening. Not only we discussed prior 16-17, but also this is 17-18 of the different activities. And as you see, there were different opportunities to send letters home to families, to work with 5th grade teachers, principals. We also had several parent meetings, not only at the district, but also at individual school sites. And then I added 2 additional bullets on the bottom that in April 2018, we did do a very thorough presentation to the board on all of the information, as well as a review of the lessons. And then what we did have, based on your guidance, was we established a steering committee, and they met 2 evenings during the summer, and that was July 9th and July 16th, actually here in the boardroom. So the steering committee members, we invited individuals that attended our district meetings on family life. We also solicited names from our principals. We took a look at teachers, administrators, staff members, and really we took it very seriously that we wanted to have a balanced conversation about the materials, the content, and so we ended up with about 16 individuals. We had district staff, principals, teachers, as well as parent and family members. And really during those 2 evenings, it was very, very intense, the work. We went through a lot of information, but really the areas that we worked on was reviewing the family life, or the 5th grade health standards. We really focused in on those that would be considered part of family life, having to do with puberty and health. We reviewed the state law, and we analyzed the current set of lessons that are currently being used in the classroom. Something I didn't add here, which is important to mention, is that we did also review all of the feedback that was solicited from 5th grade teachers who went through the materials.
I think it's also fair to say in this analysis, I know the curriculum department looked and saw many different sets of instructions. So we have, you know, the national standards, the state standards, past curriculum that has been used in multiple districts. And so it really was an opportunity to kind of see what makes sense and what aligns with what we need to do.
And just before we leave that slide, I do want to thank the members on the committee, because being a classroom teacher myself, I gave them homework. I gave them work to do prior to the meetings, and then I gave them work to do in between the meetings, and I gave them a very short period of time in order to bring back their feedback, and they all did a fantastic job. So I just want to publicly thank all of them for their hard work.
How many of those parents were just parents, weren't also employees of the district?
The probably the 5 parents, I believe they were parents, families, community members. Those 5 were only parents, families, and community members, but some of the teachers were also parents, so they were more of a duplicate. And some of those individuals came one night, some came the second night, so some of them did split.
Your recommendations as we move forward.
So the recommendations, we organized them into two different categories, and the team was very, very thoughtful, and we continue to bring back what would we like to share with the board, what do we want to share with the community to make sure that we had a balanced result of where the concerns were, where we felt like there was some flexibility and some need for some change. So with regards to the overarching recommendations, all sites really should have a parent or community meeting at their school. The folks really felt as if that's the point of contact for the families. They feel more comfortable there, and the principals and teachers in the room that did do that, they said that it was absolutely invaluable. So that's something we definitely recommend. Teachers and parents need access to the same version. It was very interesting. Actually, there's someone in the audience tonight that she was looking at a version, and we had a version in a binder, and they were different. And the reason they were different was as people were pulling lessons off the website, they were constantly refining and adjusting. So certain information that some of our community members had were different than some of the teachers and other community members. So as we move forward, if indeed we follow up with these recommendations, that would be something we want to make very, very clear. We are all using the same version, we're all using the same information. The steering committee also really felt like a single opt-out for everything was a bit unnecessary. They really wanted to go back and take a look at what the California Ed Code said, and really the opt-out part of it should be for the area that the comprehensive sexuality education focuses on. So the lessons that are covered by Ed Code 51931B, human development and sexuality, including education on pregnancy, contraception, and sexually transmitted infections. Having to opt out of all curriculum in this area versus the area that the Ed Code addresses seemed to be something that folks were open to, and they felt like that would be a recommendation that they'd want to move forward. And then training be provided to teachers, including PE teachers. They felt they were in a group that definitely needed to be included. Principals, as well as some support staff. So let's say our interpreters and our deaf and hard of hearing program, maybe they get a look at it, they get some training so they understand kind of what's going on with the lessons and how they can prepare. So those are kind of overarching recommendations.
I would share also, you mentioned the single opt-out as you went through the lessons. There may be one lesson that a parent wanted to opt out of. We had feedback from many of our principals that when they spoke to their communities that was something that they wanted to at least, even though there were not very many opt-outs at all, but that was just a question that came up from our principals. So that was feedback that we received.
So the opt-out data, there was 0.03% of our 5th grade families decided to opt out their student. So on the other side, having to do with the actual lessons, and we did a deep dive with that, and this was part of the homework in between meeting 1 and meeting 2, that the group really felt like the lessons on friendship, bullying, how to be clear with your friends, that would be really important to do in the beginning of the year. There's only 4 videos actually included in the lessons. There's other videos that are there for teachers and other folks to take a look at, but the 4 that are actually in the lessons, a couple of the teachers said, well, I have better ones than that. So we do want to take a look at possibly replacing those 4 with ones that our 5th grade teams really feel like they're more appropriate to go with the content. 5th grade teachers also felt like information on feminine hygiene should be included in the lessons. And then the 2 that really seemed to be most significant with regards to the change was the steering committee really felt like lesson 8, which really focuses solely on HIV, is really more appropriate at the middle school level. They felt that would be something that would be a good recommendation. And then lesson 10, focusing on the difference between gender identity, gender expression, gender orientation, also been moved to middle school where they do a deep dive with that. What's important to note is gender orientation is discussed in other lessons. It's just this level of complexity and what all of these terms meant. Part of the team really felt like maybe that should be at middle school, but the team was split on this, to be perfectly honest. Some of them felt very strongly that absolutely, you just naturally go into that. Another group thought that, the sexual orientation information is great at this age, with a focus of the deep dive into this information being more middle school.
Jen, weren't these 2 items also the ones where we saw some difference between the California standards and the national standards?
We did. The HIV does seem to slide between California 5th grade and then nationally more middle school. When we did look at lesson 10, focusing on those differences, that did seem to live even in California in middle school. Now, we can't predict that the new health standards that are actually in draft form that are going to be approved later on this year, that's not going to be added to that new set of standards. But for right now, it is not listed within the 5th grade.
And I can share that I did a poll of multiple county, other superintendents in Alameda and in Contra Costa, and they had a similar alignment where they saw these 2 lessons in particular at the middle level.
We're back on that slide. We're talking about the videos. Were you thinking of standardizing them like you would the other materials so everybody would show the same video?
Yes, we would give them as these are the ones that we're recommending that you use. Absolutely.
And out of curiosity, do you remember off the top of your head what's lesson 9 that falls between 8 and 10?
What falls between 8 and 10? 9 was a focus on orientation. I am who I am type of thing. I don't know if that's the exact title.
It's something like that.
But it did, again, the deeper dive was the lesson 11.
Thank you.
So if indeed we're going to move forward with these recommendations, if that is the will of the superintendent and the board, these are next steps that we are also recommending. That, of course, we sent out communications to all 5th grade teachers and principals on the revision, that we very, very quickly let our families know about the changes in the materials and also the dates of where they can review the materials. We will have them, as always, at the school sites. They'll be at Willow Creek, available, widely. We'll also have them on the website, making sure they're all the same version, so we don't have that misunderstanding. The 2 timelines that have already been put in the parent information packet that we're trying to keep is there's a viewing week in October as well as January. But if those need to be adjusted so the work can be done, we can do that. The revision of the materials, of course, will need some work, such as replacing the video choices. The county office, through their Brain Pop and their Ed One Stop, does have quite a few videos that 5th grade teachers were saying were great choices. Also want to make sure that we remove any of the lessons from the material binder to make sure that those are ones that are going to be addressed later. Copy, deliver new materials to sites, post the new materials on the website, and then, of course, training the new 5th grade teachers on the materials. Something I would like to also add there is continuing to gather feedback from the community. Collected either from the principals or from possibly a survey on the website. So as we continue learning through this process, we do understand from, there'll be questions from time to time, some concerns and challenges, and we just want to make sure that we gather them as we go along.
So this item has been brought to you for information in our report for information portion, and we will look forward to feedback and bring it, our recommendation is to approve, and we will bring this back for action at a future board meeting.
Do any board members have any questions before we hear from the public? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you to Jennifer Sachs and her team for bringing this together. Great job.
Okay, public comment. Leah Bush.
Good evening. Thank you for adding the Family Life curriculum to the agenda this evening. I have a 7th grade daughter who went through the previous curriculum 2 years ago, which from my perspective was scientific and fact-based lessons. They were designed to inform all students about how their bodies work, to provide general information about reproduction, and discuss changes to their bodies that are coming their way. The boys and girls were also separated, creating a more safe environment for them to ask questions. My youngest is a 5th grade boy, and I'm quite surprised the direction the new curriculum has gone. I don't know how many of you have been around 10 or 11-year-olds recently. There's a wide range of maturity levels. My son has no interest in romantic relationships, and I wouldn't be surprised if he thinks girls still have cooties. The lessons put forth in this new curriculum appear to have more discussion about relationships than they do scientific facts. The curriculum has strayed significantly in 2 short years. In my opinion, the majority of these lesson plans are not age appropriate for 10 and 11-year-old children and seem to miss the goal of providing information about the students' bodies and the changes they will experience. Also, if the objective is to put students at ease, I don't believe keeping boys and girls together is a good idea. As recently as 2 years ago, they were split up. I would imagine something had to come out of the existing lesson plans, given that there are now 11 lessons, each approximately 40 minutes in length. There's no mention of what curriculum is getting removed, to make room for this new curriculum. My recollection is that my daughter's class did not spend almost 7.5 hours on family life. Finally, have you asked 5th grade teachers what they think? Sounds like you have, and I actually have a comment from one of those sessions written by a teacher. Neither the board nor MDUSD parents participated in the adoption of this curriculum. How can that be in the best interest of our children? The chosen curriculum is too much too soon and should be reduced. Since EdCodes does not require this depth in 5th grade, I do not understand why MDUSD is participating in the sexualization of children who are not yet mature enough to handle the content. Additionally, Advocates for Youth promotes only certain forms of birth control and not abstinence. It is a biased organization and our school should be promoting all choices. I was deeply offended that Advocates for Youth sent a Mother's Day email message in support of abortion access without even speaking to the choice of adoption, where a woman might actually get to celebrate Mother's Day. Again, that was a teacher's comment. I would also like to ask, as was mentioned earlier in this age of technology, that these lessons be made available online. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker is Denise Persha.
Good evening. The last time I was here, I recounted a conversation that occurred during a meeting I attended July 16th at the district offices. We were discussing 5th grade sexuality curriculum for 10 and 11-year-old children. This discussion included the reason it was important for the district to provide not only a definition of vaginal sex, but also should include a definition for anal and oral sex too. It was surmised to do so would provide parity across sexual and gender orientations because school districts are required to adhere to discrimination laws. However, if you're interested in understanding how this conversation could take place, it is actually because one of the lessons titled Sexual and Reproductive Anatomy includes sexual anatomy, and this is a field too far and scripts the teacher to point to the clitoris and say, this is the clitoris, it is very sensitive. You see, when the district decided to teach sexual anatomy and not just reproductive, this lesson on sexual anatomy is what led to the discussion. Then in another one of the lesson plans, Making Sense of Puberty, 5 pages from the end of the lesson and just prior to the teacher's guide, is a handout with a list of resources for children. And on the list of resources is the book titled, It's Perfectly Normal. And here it is. As an article from NPR in 2014 stated, it may be perfectly normal, but it's also frequently banned. This book is on a handout and is given to children to research more information, and the handout says, and I quote, these resources all provide important age-appropriate information about puberty and how our bodies change during this time, unquote. But to parents who might be listening, if you've never seen this book, well, you must get a copy and check out all the pictures. True, the book is one of the most banned books in America and often tops the top 10 most banned books ever in any given year. And true, the pictures are cartoons, but they show various couples, you know, cartoon couples, in various sex acts, as well as how to put on a condom, and includes a discussion in a chapter entirely devoted to masturbation. All with the cartoon pictures to help tell the story. And yes, this book discusses anal and oral sex and defines it too. It also states, and I quote, people of all ages masturbate. Babies, kids, teenagers, grown-ups, and yes, the elderly. This book does show you exactly what some people want to teach our children who are 10 and 11 years old, as this book is stated for age 10 and up. This book is not appropriate, and neither is some of the curriculum for our children who are 10 and 11 years old. And certainly, anal and oral sex definitions are not age appropriate either for 10-year-olds. We need this board to discuss and vote either for or against this curriculum. It sounds like you've accepted it, and that is the recommendation, or perhaps even to modify it is what I would suggest. Time is of the essence. I just ask you, what are you waiting for? I've been giving public comments for over 7 months. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Ackerman.
Hi, I too thank you very much for putting this on the agenda, and thank you for your report. I have no defense for the previous curriculum and whatnot in terms of its inaccuracy, but I would like to say that this curriculum is also grossly inaccurate. And I will give you just one example. A big glaring example is the example of the definition of sexuality. It starts, it's the instructions for the teachers to teach the kids start with, say, as we get older, our feelings start to change. We might experience a type of romantic love that we didn't have when we were younger. It's really hard to explain. And then it says, how are these relationships different than the relationships you have with your family members or what have you? And your probe, and it says probe for, you do different things together. You feel like being with that person all the time. You like doing nice things for them and think of what they might want to do before what you might want to do. Okay, that's a definition of romantic love. Moving on. So if you think, okay, well, they're just moving into this or whatnot, moving on, they get even more explicit. Go to the 4th slide, it says, and say, even though the phrase sexual orientation has the word sexual in it, in many cases, people have strong feelings of love before feelings of sexual attraction or before acting on those feelings. In other words, if you want to do special things with someone, if you think about that person and what they want ahead of what you want, if you want to be with them all of the time, then you must be sexually oriented toward them because you don't actually have to have sexual feelings toward them. So, if I have a 9, 10, 11-year-old and he feeds the dog without me asking him to, or opens the door for a little old lady, or whatever, if he looks at this curriculum, is he going to be confused and thinks he is sexually oriented towards his dog and a little old lady? Because that's the definition of sexual orientation as given in this curriculum. So that alone is just awful. But in that same lesson 9 that they were talking about before, I am who I am, it also says that it is a myth that sexual orientation can be changed. And again, who said that? Because I personally know people who have changed their sexual orientation, sometimes in many different ways. So I'm at a loss here. This is just awful. It's not good for any age, and I really hope that it's revisited. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is for another topic, right? Okay, I think that's all the speakers we have on that. Again, if the board has any comments or questions?
Thank you to Mrs. Sachs for the presentation. And then my question, I just want to reiterate some of these, but you mentioned in the presentation, Mrs. Sachs, that the materials will be posted online. Will they be posted online prior to our next board meeting so that families, the community will have a chance to review the materials prior to our voting in 2 weeks?
We can have those available
On the website, okay. And in terms of the boys and girls being separated, was that, what led to that change from 2 years ago, that previously boys and girls were separated and now they're not? Is that a district-wide decision, or was that a site-level decision?
My understanding is it was part of the guided curriculum, and that there were a lot of different reasons. One is that they didn't want to make it like you're going away and talking about something that is taboo, and they also wanted to engage in a class-wide discussion about how everyone gets along, and much of this curriculum is about anti-bullying, not making fun of families that have different makeups, and respecting families that have homosexual parents or have step-parents or different types of configurations. But much of it was very appropriate for both genders. And then I think also there was the discussion that as they got to things that were more specific to anatomy, that it was important for this to be something that was not something you would snicker or giggle at, for example. It was just matter of fact But Jen, I don't know if there's anything else that you could add.
No, I think you hit all of the highlights. I think I'm thinking again what College Park shared with regards to the change that they were, moving towards with regards to homecoming and not having, queens and kings and a princess and a prince and all of that. It's trying to be more inclusive with our language at all levels. So when you're in a classroom and in the past, when students were told boys over there, girls over there, you're going to hear about what's appropriate for your gender, more and more we have young people coming to us and into our schools where they're not exactly sure what maybe classroom they would need to be assigned to. And so I do believe, along with everything that you said, that was also kind of part of it, in order to try to have a very inclusive environment where students aren't put on the spot and there's not that level of anxiety probably placed on them. And we make sure nothing is secret and nothing's taboo, that we, from the very, very minute students start talking about these subjects, they start engaging with the conversation. So later on, hopefully, they're not misunderstanding, there's not any misconceptions. So I do believe that was what the little was with the change.
And then also, if there's something very specific that a young boy or girl wants to ask, this is not the only forum for it. So we have groups that are small groups where groups of boys or girls could meet with a counselor, or they could discuss things that they felt pertained to only them one-on-one as well. So when it really got down to something that was not as generalized, there were places to have more private conversations as well.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, that takes us to our consent agenda. Items listed under consent agenda are considered routine and will be approved or adopted by a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. However, any item may be removed from the consent agenda upon the request of any member of the board and acted upon separately. Are there any requests to pull anything? I would like to pull 13.9. And I'll entertain a motion for the rest of them.
Madam President, I move the approval of the consent agenda with the exception of 13.9.
Second. And that passes 5-0-0. Thank you. 13.9 now becomes 14.1. I pulled this because, I'm sure you guys can guess, on the contract there was nothing checked regarding fingerprinting. And I know sometimes maybe the district folks that put these on the agenda think there's going to be minimal contact with our students, but I personally feel anytime an adult is on campus for anything, just like the parents would be expected to be fingerprinted, we should have some assurance that that individual is fingerprinted. So that's why I pulled it.
So will this person be working with adults or with students?
This person will be going with teams of adults into classrooms and observing and looking at lessons, and then coming back and talking about what they've done, and then sharing that with the teacher, and then spending days at different schools doing that same work.
And we would not expect that individual to be alone with students at any given time then?
Typically, from my understanding, knowing how instructional rounds work, they are with a team. But in this case, I don't know. It looks like none of them were checked, so we could check to see which one would be most appropriate. I'm not certain this person could have fingerprints and we're unaware. It just looks like it was an omission on the form.
I happen to know this individual, not a close friend, but what is interesting is she's an educator, so she's been fingerprinted for her job, but the omission for us is we don't really care if she's been fingerprinted for her job. She was working with Alameda County for years. It's when they come into our district, you know, even though they're educators who've already been fingerprinted to be an educator, we have, I would say, verify that they are. So I would say that is an important piece to put in.
In this contract, she's not working for Alameda County, she's independent.
No, I'm saying she's gone independent, but she's an educator, where we're all fingerprinted. I know as an educator, I'm fingerprinted, but that doesn't mean anything when you're from another organization or another industry.
It's not reported to anyone else.
Yeah, so we aren't really verifying that she still is being fingerprinted or has been cleared, so, you know, I think that's what Mrs. Mason keeps coming back to, is that verification. And we should be checking that box, even, you know, if it's a quick check because she's a fingerprinted employee of another district. But, you know, if they're not in Mount Alva Unified, we need to verify. I would agree with that.
So we can bring this item back, and it could possibly be at that time for a ratification, but we can bring it back to clarify and make sure it is complete.
Thank you. Communications, do we have any cards for that?
Could I make a communication?
Absolutely.
I wanted to share in my report, I did not share that we had a field trip to Deer Park High School this week, where there was a college fair, and we sent several of our students to the college fair, and it was a college fair for our historically black colleges and universities. And so I wanted to say, as a result of that, we had 19 students who were offered scholarships already at these universities. I'll just say their names. College Now, we had, I think the right ones, Mariah, is that yours? No? Okay. Mount Diablo High School, excuse me, Mariah Ford, Hania Hale, Ariel Griffin, Mayari Randall, Maya Miller, Megan Chachochong, Colin Caban, Malika Sowell, Mia Herrera Adams, Jasmine James. YV High School, Yoliana Sanchez, Janaya Tucker, Elias Davis, Allison Dutton, Miriam Tofik, Samantha Simpson, Megan Clifton, and Felix Bonifacio. And Concord High, we had Korea Bozeman. So many others may also receive, but these were already universities that are anxious to serve our students. So that is my communication.
I heard about this event at another meeting that I was at today. So congratulations to the students, and congratulations too for Antioch High School in hosting this event for students.
And we'll be writing up something about this. So good news.
Okay. Business and action items. 17.1, approve the budget and fiscal services reorganization. Okay, let's do that for that person. We're going to move 17.13 to the top, because
It's a lot of weight.
even though that person might be dying to hear what we're doing on all these other topics, we'll let them come up now and speak. Or do you want to wait?
No, we'll go.
Come on up.
Are you gonna go get a picture? Oh, we have more. Well, now you
She didn't wait.
I didn't want to have to wait from 13 to 12.
Oh, they're all on. They're all on.
Thank you. I was wondering if I was gonna make it.
All right.
It's been an interesting meeting, I have to say though. And first thing I want to say is thank you to everybody who met with the Playfield Committee from Mount Diablo Elementary. Myself and Michelle Hill and Deborah Gonzalez are here to say thank you. We're kind of the tri-chairs for that committee. And we worked with Richard and with Nellie and with Cheryl and with a number of people to really get everyone to listen, that we didn't feel that the field at Mount Diablo was safe at the elementary school. And people listened to us and they heard us, and we pitched a plan for that, and we tweaked the plan a few times, but we came across with raising $360,000 for that, and the district matched that with $350,000, so we were more than happy that that occurred. And then tonight, Richard will be putting up the bids for that project, and we hope that the low bid will be accepted and voted upon. There's also 3 alternatives that are also listed on the agenda, and those alternatives will give us a completed track, you know, asphalt track like the schools have, but the whole thing will be repaired, not just a part of it. And it will also include playground equipment and baseball, softball equipment just being replaced. They're all really old and broken down and everything. At the last minute, there was a little glitch, and a bill was found that wasn't originally, we didn't know about until like 2 weeks ago. So we fell short on our fundraising for part of those alternatives. But we hope that through drilling down, and both John Wilford and Richard and the committee believes we'll get rid of that $33,000. We'll drill down with Goodland and who's going to receive the bid, and that's not going to be a problem. However, that leaves out one piece of landscaping around the field, just a little landscaping, but it was on bids from $25,000 to $45,000. So we're still raising money for that. So we just want to make sure we're still able to keep that in the project. And I noticed it wasn't on the agenda, so it was just my concern that we do keep that, so that if by the time we finish the project, this would be the last thing anyways, that we can add that landscaping should we have the money. So, I mean, that's a question. And then the last thing I wanted to say is, you did hear me say that we raised 360, right? And you guys matched it with 350. We could get that 25 a lot closer if you decided maybe that the district wanted to give 10 more to match our 360. But anyways, I thought I had to throw that in. So I do want to say thanks to everybody. And it was a lot of hard work. 350 is a lot of money for a small community to raise, and took us a little longer than we thought. I think it was about 1.5 years. But anyways, I'm right at my last few seconds, so thank you again.
Thank you. Deborah Gonzalez?
I'm Deborah Gonzalez, and I want to thank you all as well for stepping up and helping us get this job done. I'm 64 and I'm done with all this fundraising. I thought it was going to be easier than it was, but it was pretty hard. But we had a lot of parents that helped out and came forward, and I can't wait to see the first day that tractor comes out there and starts breaking that ground. We are so proud of our community, so proud of the district. We're so proud of all the help we've had, and I think we're probably the last old ladies that are going to come through here doing this. I think we've been a good role model to a lot of people, and a lot of the new parents have stepped up, and we've handed them the baton, and they're really kind of taken over, and it feels so nice to get that relief. And again, thank you very much for making our dream come true.
Thank you. And Michelle Hill.
Good evening, Dr. Meyer and board members. On behalf of the Mount Diablo Elementary Playfield Committee, I'd like to thank you and all of you for all of your hard work and your contribution to approve this field project. We look forward to breaking ground, and as Pat said, she wanted me to say, if you want to add to that, we appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
President,
Yes, sir.
I move that the board approve item 17.13, award bid number 1810, Mount Diablo Elementary School to Goodland Landscape Construction.
Thank you.
Second.
you.
No, I'm not gonna jump in and do it because I appreciate the other board support. I've been in this project for a couple of years with this community, and it's kind of a Concord, Clayton, incredible effort. And I just wanna say thank you to the community who brought this to our attention, because sometimes we don't know. The same thing happened at Concord High. I know it was brought to my attention by the football coach at the time about the ability to break an ankle in the gopher holes. And they were the last grass field in the district, and it was a flaming train wreck. So I think it's great when community members are aware and alert and bring it forward, but not only bring it forward, but are willing to really work to get it done. And that was a monumental effort that they put into that, and thank you for bringing it to our attention. And it's a great partnership that I hope we can continue, and we have in other settings. So I'm glad to have the rest of the board jump me in too. I can hardly wait for the breaking of the ground. I think it's been a couple of years. We thought, oh, we'll just breeze right on through this. There's something called bureaucracy in all of our government agencies.
Those gophers have to move.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we're back to approve the budget and fiscal services reorganization. I believe we had a presentation at our last meeting, so this is here for action tonight. Last chance to ask any questions. No, we have up for the 17.1.
Yep.
It'll
Bumping
move.
around. So while we wait for it to pull up, Madam President, I move that the board approve item 17.1 to approve the budget and fiscal services reorganization.
Thank you.
Second.
And that passes 500. 17.2, resolution number 18/19-9, adopt the district's 2017-18 appropriations limit calculation GAN action item. I believe we see this every year.
Correct.
Madam President, I move that the board approve adoption of resolution number 18/19-9, adopting the 27-18 appropriation limit calculation known as the GAN limit.
Thank you.
Second.
That passes 500. Okay. 17.3, certification of the district's 2017-18 unaudited actual financial report, which I'm guessing we have a report.
Correct. I'd like to ask our CBO Rose Ramos and Mika to come up, and they're going to share information. And you also have in front of you the unaudited actuals in the purple. The College Park unaudited actual.
Thank you. Good evening, President Mason, board members, Dr. Meyer, staff, and public. This is a brief presentation. This is our year-end financial statements, and also known as the unaudited actuals for the year 17-18. We have a little bit of a change tonight. Normally we have Nancy here with us, but she's at a very important workshop tonight, so we have Mika presenting with us. She is our chief accountant. And with that, she's going to share the presentation, some of the slides with me. I'm going to turn over the next one to her. Come on.
She's so excited about
Very
that.
happy. Thank you. So the first, I never used this, so I don't know. Thank you.
So this chart shows the unrestricted general fund income and expense. Right side is showing the income. As you can see, most of our income is from LCFF state aid and also property tax. And we also receive federal, state, and local. Federal is like AP testing. State is governor's one-time lottery money. Local is from often from the school site abatement. And the chart on the left side shows the expenditure. It's divided in several sectors. One is certificated salary, classified salary, benefits for both, supplies, and services, capital outlay. Notable thing is 91% of unrestricted fund expenditure is used for salary and benefits. Supplies, services, capital outlay makes up the smaller portion.
And the next slide is the same information that Nika provided, just the numbers for you summarized. And the difference between this chart is just that the last time you saw these numbers was when we presented the adopted budget, and it was a projected amount that we expected, how we expected to end the year. And of course, we had not yet closed the books and hadn't fully spent our money or collected all of our revenue. So you'll see some minor differences between the revenue that you saw last time and the revenue now. It's about $1.5 million there. And then as our contribution also increased just a little bit, about $1.5 million, and that's our final special ed cost, which is pretty typical. We also had an increase in our expenses, about $4 million. It was some purchases of textbooks in preparation for the new school year. And then, so obviously that would impact our ending fund balance. It dipped a little bit by about $5 million. And then the non-spendable, those are typical categories like our stores and our cash accounts. And then there you have our economic uncertainty, which is a little lower than what you saw last time. And the difference is because, as you'll see in the next slides, when we present the restricted side of the budget, of the actuals, we didn't fully spend, and we typically don't. Those are our carryover amounts. Those are the restricted dollars. So, and just a reminder, it was kind of mentioned in Dr. Meyer's presentation that now that we've dipped below the 30,000, we are now at 3%. So this is going to be one of our last years that we have a 2% economic uncertainty. So that's going to increase to about 11 million in this new year. And then the other assigned of 30 million, 30.2 million, that's simply our carryover on the unrestricted, the majority being LCFF supplemental, it's about 25 million. And the other smaller portion is what we've been reserving to help pay some of those PERS and STRS increases that we knew they're going to slowly increase over time. So we have to be prepared for that. And then with that, here we have the restricted side, and I will turn that back over to Mika.
So this chart is showing the restricted side, again the general fund. Earlier we talked about unrestricted. This one is restricted side. Again, the fund is coming from federal, state, local, and also it has contributions. So federal is like Title I, II, III. State fund is, again, lottery, special ed receives some funds. Local restricted is like MOU or contracts from city, county, and also outside entity, local businesses. Contribution is coming from unrestricted general fund. These are used for special ed and also routine restricted maintenance. There are other things, athletics, E-rate programs, things like that. That was on the right side. Left side again is expenditure from restricted side. This one, about 70% is salary and benefit, and the 30% is about other supplies, services, capital outlay. It's a little more evenly distributed. And I will turn over to you.
And we have the same presentation here, the numbers now on the restricted side, less information. So I'll just get down to the carryover. That ending balance of 19 million is carryover. These are legally restricted. The majority of that is our capital outlay accounts, obviously because the majority of our work's done in the summer. So you're going to see that decrease significantly. And then the other smaller portion is some of our other restricted categoricals, our titles and so forth. And then our next slide is our STRS and PERS, and this is really interesting. I'll let Mika explain this one. These are the increases.
So employer contributions for pension benefit. The chart on top is for STRS. So the rate from 16-17 through 2020-21, these were already approved by legislature and governor, so we don't anticipate it will change. And it's about 1.85% increase every year. And from 1920 to 2021, it kind of slows down a little bit. It's 0.97% increase. And the bottom on the chart, it has 2021 and 2022. This is the estimate from school services. So this may change. And the chart on the bottom is for PERS, typically classified employees benefit. These are typically voted May by CalPERS board. So it changes every year, but they also provide some projection. And these are increasing little over 2.5, some years 2.7, little more. Again, it seems to slow down a little bit. 21-22, it will be 1.10 increase.
Can I just ask right here? We always are talking about through 2021, and it's sort of that exponential jump in our contribution.
Yes.
What is projected? I see you project a little bit of a dip there. It's just a guess, but just when you said that, I realized I never really thought about what happens after 2021. Was the idea to stay at that top percentage, or does anyone know?
My understanding is it will slow down or a little bit goes down.
Okay, but it's not, I mean, it wasn't as if, okay, now we're done, we can go back to something that's manageable. It's going to stay high.
I can, if you don't mind. Yes, it's going to stay unless PERS or STRS, their earnings are pretty significant.
Right.
There's some change, or they change the benefit program. There's been talk about changing it again for the new people coming into working in the state. We might see a change, but to kind of fund all those liabilities in the out years, this is where they're going to need to be for a while.
Okay.
So we just have to hope on better earnings, some change, some pension reform to see some relief in that, or more funding for us so that we can afford to pay for this.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I mean, it just struck me when she
I know,
said that I hadn't thought past 2021.
Right.
Well, and this is based on STRS and PERS projections, which they've lowered their projections, but those projections are still above historical returns, which is a scary thing. And so I hate this almost as much as Ms. Hanson hates the use of the term dean. And, almost. But when you look at it's on the STRS portion, this is, and I think this is really important for the public to know, that this is $11 million between 16-17 and 21-22. That's over $11 million, and then another 7 on the PERS. That's $18 million that we are not able to spend on our students, that is not going to our teachers, to our classrooms, to the things that help provide better student outcomes. And I think that it's incredibly, I'm glad, Ms. Hanson, that you called it out, and I think it's incredibly unfortunate and frankly kind of reckless on the state's part not to have addressed this in a more thorough and systemic way.
I better keep buying those lotto tickets, huh?
And we're just praying that Mrs. Mason hits the lotto and then
And
all our
contributes
problems
it to
are
the
taken
district.
care of. Yes.
Yeah, well, thank you. I just realized that, we've been on that ride that Mr. Lawrence was describing, and then I thought, boy, actually 2021 is around the corner, and are we going to have any relief, and we don't know. So it's
I don't think we'll see any relief, and I think
pretty
there's potential.
shallow planning and just kind of pass the buck off on districts without a thought to the student education, I'm afraid. Not to get too political, but that's my own.
All right. The next slide is showing the other fund, like charter school, adult ed, cafeteria fund. We have positive balance with all the funds. That is great news.
It is good. It is good.
So that that concludes our presentation. The next steps are we submit the report to the county by the due date, and then staff can start to post the ending balances, and then we'll just continue working on the budget and implementing solutions so that we can mitigate those increasing costs. And just thank you to our staff, Jamie, Melina, and Erin Hill. They prepared a lot of this information for us, and of course the entire staff back in the budget department. And thank you very much, unless you have any other questions.
I do. So, it's a comment and a question. So first, a huge thank you, not just for this presentation, but for the process that has gotten us to, as the superintendent pointed out, that we have a positive certification and more and more districts are not. I think we are in good financial health, but I think every school district in California has to be concerned, one, because of the pension contributions, as well as the fact that we've now had 10 years of economic growth, and that there is a cyclical cycle to an economy, and that if we enter another downturn, that will mean further belt tightening for every school district in California. And then my one ask, I think the slides on page 2 and page 4 are very helpful, and especially as we go forward with Measure J to give our community an idea of how little available funds the district has to contribute toward capital outlays. And I was just asking if we could possibly have a slide that had the combined amounts, so that same breakdown, but of both the restricted and unrestricted, because I think that would be very helpful to be able to explain.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments before we accept the report? Hopefully.
Madam President, I move the board approve certification of Mount Alva Unified School District's 2017-18 unaudited actual financial report.
Second.
Thank you, sir. Passes 500. Which takes us to 17.4, annual renewal of Power School, formerly SunGard by Tech Services contract. Again, I think this is a yearly thing.
Madam
Questions?
President?
Yes, sir.
I move the board approve item 17.4, the annual renewal of Power School, formerly SunGard by Tech Services contract.
Second. This is 500. Taking us to 17.5, resolution 18/19-11, submission of the California Energy Commission School Bus Replacement Program Grant. Dr. Meyer, anything you want to share with us there?
Just that this is a very positive move for both energy and for the district, and seeking out additional support for our transportation department.
Madam President, I move that the board approve resolution 1819-11. It's jumping around here. For the submission of the California Energy Commission School Bus Replacement Program Grant.
Second.
Looking to see who's submitting that grant. Who got to do the actual?
I looked at that resolution.
Who did the actual grant? Do we know? Sorry, I'm just dropping that in out of the blue.
It's the transportation department.
And a communal effort. I just always applaud people who take on grants.
It was the transportation
It's-
department, yeah.
Okay, well, congratulations to them. It's always nice. They're never that easy to write.
That passes 5-0. 17.6, Engage New York as alternative core materials for elementary mathematics. This is for information and action, it looks like here.
We are recommending the adoption as an alternative core curriculum, the Engage New York for mathematics. It is required that the board formally adopt any additional core program. We currently have Houghton Mifflin, which is currently in use, but the majority of our schools are using the newer Engage New York mathematics curriculum, which is more aligned with the mathematics standards and really looks at has performance tasks, and many of the pictures that you've seen up here with manipulatives, they're using that particular curriculum. So this is brought to you as somewhat of a ratification of something that we have had in use.
I think some of the publishers, as I recall, they came out with these textbooks and then we changed the standards, and the publishers said, we're not going to make a lot of money reselling entire sets of textbooks to districts who just purchase them, and people like Houghton Mifflin decided we'll just do a few supplemental things. So I can see why we're still supplementing. And this goes back, you're talking about 2009, so it's like another era in education. So.
And there was a question that we had as we look at all of our adoptions, whether they are aligned with the new standards. Some have inserted portions that just have the standards, but I did speak to other superintendents, Livermore, Fairfield, and two strong instructional programs, and they're both also using a similar supplementary material as an alternative core. So it really will no longer be supplemental, it will be a core.
That's where we ended up. It was typical as we
And any questions, also any specifics we have, Jen, if you have questions.
If I can just add something just for the public, because I know I've received some questions, that we're not taking anything away, we're actually acknowledging the fact that we have schools that have really kind of been using parts or wholes of the Engage New York, and we haven't really recognized that. And I have documentation from 14-15 that was the intention. And unfortunately, it was kind of a thing that just kind of fell off the plate, and we just want to be very purposeful and transparent with the fact that we want to allow this to be another option for our schools. So just we're not taking anything away, not making significant changes, just validating what's happening in our system.
So this is a site-by-site decision whether they will use the curriculum or not, or do all of the sites use part of Engage New York?
When we spoke with Mr. Espinosa on it, his quote was most. Most of the schools are using parts or whole of the Engage New York. Other sites are pulling bits and pieces of the Houghton Mifflin. Other sites have the Houghton Mifflin in their room, but they're really more accessing other materials. And really what we plan on doing this year is to utilize our TOSAs, our coaches, as well as our curriculum specialist, Van Lay, and her expertise in order to really get a better understanding of, we've got priority standards in mathematics for our district. We're going to create benchmarks for our district to identify where the gaps are in our district, and then we backfill with the materials we need for that, rather than to listen to somebody tell us what materials we need.
So let me just ask a question. When so we first started using this in 2014 or 2013, I think.
Well,
my question
yes.
centers around the fact that as Engage New York updates their curriculum, are we downloading it and printing it for teachers, or are they responsible for accessing the new units or the revised curriculum for use in their classroom?
We work through our print shop, so our print shop has everything they need, and all they need to do is fill out a form and send it to our print shop, and they get what they need not only for themselves but also for their students.
So across the district, the teachers are using the same curriculum, the same lesson plan, the same version,
the same materials.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Madam President, I move that the board, if we're done with questions, approve the Engage New York. Do you have a question? Oh, I figured that was your last question. I don't know, could not be. Because we have to, by default, we have to do this. That's my point. Move that the board approve Engage New York as an alternative core materials for elementary mathematics. Second.
Thank you.
Okay, passes 5-0-0. And now we are on to 17.7, course adoptions for Mount Diablo High School's International Hospitality and Tourism Academy. This is for information. Go right ahead, Ms. Turkey.
I feel like she was here for no reason.
Yeah.
Leslie's got lots of questions.
You're good if I don't ask it. I just have a curiosity. I was fascinated by the concept that these course study can only be used in Calvin apprenticeship. So is that something new that they're requiring? Because I know I get that they developed it and all that. You know, they were kind of behind it, but I don't know. Is that new? That kind of concept?
It's been in the last, I want to say 3 to 4 years, because of the effort to make all the CTE classes A through G,
right.
And the difficulty in, previously the UCs were not as open to the CTE courses being A through G because of the hands-on component, and so I think that the CDE and the people that kind of lead the CPAs saw this as an opportunity to help schools who are struggling, academies who are struggling, to bring their curriculum more into line with what the UC is looking for A through G. So with the adoption of these courses, all of the CTE courses at Mount Diablo High School will be A through G.
Yeah, I guess what's fascinating to me is it specifically says you can only use it in a CPA, so like another school couldn't.
Right.
So is that new? Is that
well?
something?
So you actually raise a good question, because we have one of our we adopted 4 of these last year in some of the other academies, and we now have one of our schools, Horizons, wanting to adopt one of the courses, and so I have reached out to my contact at College and Career Academy Support Network about, can I submit it and keep my fingers, because apparently VUC doesn't like you to just copy someone else's course. They want to see that you have somehow personalized it. But as a district, we don't want a whole bunch of different courses. So I'm going to try and do that, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm making it based on what I knew before, is that that requirement's probably coming from the CPA people in the CBE, right?
Right, trying to protect the integrity of what they're doing.
I'm just not sure. Okay, I just thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, so I did reach out to Kazan, and they have not yet responded to me, so I'm gonna follow up because the deadline is on Friday.
Which just looked great. Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, it's not inconsistent.
No, it is not.
With the philosophy, okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. And that was for information. 17.8, textbook adoption for medical science and terminology for information. Any questions on that? Doesn't sound like it. We're good? Keep rolling? Okay. 17.9, textbook adoption for healthcare essentials information. Any questions on this? Nope. All right. 17.10, create new job description for director of budget, which I believe we've seen before, so it's an action item.
Madam President, I move that the board approve item 17.10, creation of a new job description for Director of Budget.
Thank you.
Second.
No. Okay, and that passes 5-0-0. Which takes us to 17.11, create new job description for accounting manager, which again, we saw at our last meeting.
Madam President, I move that the board approve the new job description for accounting manager.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Passes 5-0-0. All right. 17.12, classified personnel updated handbook for the supervisory unit, and this one is for information. Any input from the board at this time? Or questions?
I was a little thrown by the title of it, so I sat and read it, but, this doesn't TMA have something similar? I don't think it's called a handbook. It's sort of, because they're not represented,
TMA expert over there, do they have something similar?
No, I mean, we have, there is something very similar, yeah. So, anyway, I just thought it was an interesting title, okay.
Well, are you asking if this is a duplication or a?
No. I just thought it was odd to call it a handbook. I thought it was a handbook on how to be a supervisor, so I started reading it, and it's like, no, it's not, it's about terms of employment and all that kind of stuff. It's like personnel sort of thing. And then
Okay.
It really is more of an MOU for that unit.
which again, I think DMA has
Okay.
similar.
And we did 17.13. So we'll go on to 17, unless we need to keep discussing. No? 17.14, revision of board policy 5030 student wellness. And we saw this before, so it's back for review.
Well, if I've been more alert, here's a core member of our wellness committee who is, at the site actively promoting this, and at the district level actively promoting this. So we've made you sit here for hours when you'd rather be up and moving.
Should we start working in a 1-hour activity break in our meetings? That would clear the room in a hurry. All righty.
So,
Yes, sir.
Madam President?
I'm ready for you, Mr.
Okay,
Roberts. Go.
thank you. So I'll be moving this forward, but with the recommendation to remove the California Dairy Council. And if I may speak briefly as to why.
I'm ready, go ahead.
Okay, great. So my belief is that the resources listed in here should be focused on improving student health, not on maximizing corporate profits. The dairy industry is currently pouring money into both campaigns and lobbying. This year, the dairy lobby has spent more than $8 million on lobbying. They've also given campaign contributions in excess of $5 million in this current federal election cycle. Congressman Jeff Denham and Devin Nunes are two of the 3 largest recipients, and I believe that we should be governed by student wellness and not by corporate profits. And so they would certainly be free to participate, but I do not believe that the California Dairy Council should be listed as a resource.
And I'll say why I think they are. Because for many years, there wasn't nutrition education, and this is a copy of their 3rd grade curriculum, and it is Lesson 1, Food Group Fun, which dairy is only one food group. Food Group Find is Lesson 2. Lesson 3 is Nutrition Power. Lesson 4 is Sizing Your Servings, about portions we eat. Lesson 5 is Breakfast Blast, about the importance of a healthy breakfast. Lesson 6 is Snack Time, healthy snacks. 7, Get Ready, Get Moving, those activity breaks we were talking about. Lesson 8 is Label Language, the importance of reading labels. Lesson 9, Test Your Beverage Choices, which I guess they could have the heaviest hand there. And Lesson 10, Lunchtime Launch, the importance of eating lunch. And that's the curriculum that's available. So I hear what you're saying, and I bet there's a lot of dirty money and a lot of things we take all the time that we're not even aware of. But it is valuable curriculum that is well-rounded, and it's not pushing dairy products at all. It's pushing healthy lifestyles. That's my answer to your concern, which is a valid concern.
So Madam President, I would move that the board approve item 17.4, revision of board policy 5030, student wellness, with the subtraction of the California Dairy Council as a recommended resource.
Is there a second? That dies for lack of a second. Is there another motion?
Madam President, I move the board approve the revision of board policy 5030, student wellness, as presented.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Thank you, ma'am.
So I do appreciate Mr. Lawrence's concerns. I do believe there are other, what do I want to say, farm industries that also contribute to campaigns. But I have served on different committees other than what Deborah Mason has been involved with, and have seen the work that the Dairy Council does within our schools
in promoting gardens and supporting the curriculum and training parent leaders and teachers in delivering curriculum and supporting health fairs throughout the state of California. So we're struggling with your information and our own personal experience and what we're seeing.
I'm going off my experience, which I think we mentioned last time, participating in this wellness for several years now, just on the fringe as a board member. And I have seen a balance and a fairness and a support for health and student wellness, and not an advocacy for a particular product or industry. So that's what I go off of as well.
I would just point out that the Dairy Council is the only for-profit entity that we're listing as a resource.
Duly noted. Yes, passes 4-1-0. Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. I always like healthy debate.
I do too. And we're not adjourning, correct?
We are not. We're not needing a meeting extension either. We're about to go back into our closed session to deal with the two items that we did not deal with, and then we will come back out to open session and report what we do in closed session. So you're welcome to stay and wait for us if you like. Shaking your head.